Winter is coming. These are both the words of House Stark and George R.R. Martin's ominous refrain throughout A Song of Ice and Fire. Behind the fighting of kings and the birth of dragons is that promise. Winter is coming. Well, of course it is. It's usually the season that follows fall and precedes spring. Why are the Starks making such a big deal of this? Because this isn't taking place on Earth. That's why. The continent of Westeros is on a planet that, for the most part, operates the same way as Earth. There's land and sea, the surface temperature seems about the same as Earth, and there are, well, humans. But as much as Westeros seems like Earth, it's clear from early on in the series that something is amiss, and that something bigger than the fighting of kings is driving the plot. After all, political leaders fighting while dragons breathe fire isn't anything new. Doing it with the imminent threat of a years-long winter so cold it can kill, while also unleashing an army of the undead, makes the whole story that much more ominously interesting. Before I go into what causes seasons, and whether or not a planet like the one in Game of Thrones could exist, it's important to note that the biggest factors in Earth's average temperature are its atmosphere and the amount of the planet that is covered by water. It takes a lot more energy to heat and cool water than it does to heat and cool land. Because 71% of Earth is covered by water, the average temperature of the planet doesn't swing that wildly from night to day and from season to season. Water simply cannot change temperature that quickly. Our atmosphere also protects us from temperature swings. Most of the energy from the sun that reaches Earth is trapped as heat in our atmosphere due to the greenhouse effect. Yes, the greenhouse effect is responsible for global warming, but it is also the reason our planet can sustain life. I'm going to assume that the planet in Game of Thrones has the same general properties as Earth, a similar atmosphere, and a similar percentage of ocean. It's possible that this is a bad assumption to make, and that the unpredictable seasons are caused by swings in greenhouse gases or a lower percentage of water. But it seems safe to assume, based on the mythology, that this is not the case. That means there has to be some astronomical explanation, that is, an explanation having to do with the relationship between the planet and other massive bodies in its vicinity, such as moons and stars, for the seasons that drive the narrative of Westeros's foreboding onslaught of winter. What exactly are seasons? It seems silly to answer this question at the start, since everyone pretty much knows what a season is. If flowers are blooming, it's spring. If it's hot and steamy, it's probably summer. And if the leaves are changing color, it's probably fall. Days off work and a snow shovel mean winter is finally here. In the world of Westeros, it's the white raven of the Citadel, not the French toast index, that tells us when winter is here. However, it isn't quite that simple. Even scientists don't have one specific fail-safe way to say what season we are in. There are actually two working definitions of seasons: meteorological and astronomical. As you would expect, the meteorological definition is based on what the weather is like, and the astronomical definition is based on where we are in our orbit around the sun. In the known world of Westeros, the Maesters seem concerned primarily with the meteorological definition. But an interesting book in the restricted section of the Citadel's library seen in the Season 7 premiere suggests they knew a bit more about astronomy than previously discussed. The two don't differ that much in terms of start and end dates, but for most of this chapter I'm going to be using the astronomical definition, because I care more about how the planet is moving and less about rain next Tuesday.